Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. And I've put together the top 7 key market drivers I look at when analyzing a real estate market. Go to sethferguson.org to download your free copy. Our guest today started in real estate in 2015 and has completed over 100 deals. He has experience in wholesaling, rehabs, multifamily, and creative deal structures. Joshua Morse joins us today. Joshua, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Seth, thank you for having me.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. So let's kick things off and talk about your real estate goals right now. Where are you looking to go with real estate?
So currently right now, I'm sticking with what I know best, which is, wholesaling, just anything with single family properties. And so I'm doing that right now, trying to just stay at that like 50 properties a year mark. And on top of that, looking for smaller multifamily, 18 units, 30, 40 units, and just trying to build that up and keep those. So, yeah.
And so your setup then is you're generating the cash with the wholesaling, and then you're taking that and then putting that into, let's say, a smaller multifamily. Is that your strategy?
Yeah, for sure. I never wanted to cut off something that was working, right? So for me, I'm making good money doing wholesaling and fix and flips and lipsticks and all these other, structures of real estate transactions that I can take that capital and I'm paying, short-term capital gains on it, but I'm also building wealth, moving it into like self-directed 401k and rentals and whatnot. So
yeah, and having that business income and then being able to put that and having your real estate portfolio, that's a very powerful combination. Once you get it going. Yeah. So do you then have a goal? Do you think about it and say, hey, listen, with my multifamily portfolio, I want to acquire X number of units a year? Do you even think about it that way?
So I always like to shoot a little bigger. So the goal, for this year was okay, let's try to get anywhere from 40 to 70. So I market up to 70 units, direct to seller, and just trying to get what I can. And right now I'm working 28 total units. Right at this moment, it's not done deal, but working 28 right now.
Nice. And what would you say then is your biggest challenge right now with your business, either wholesaling or on the portfolio side?
Sure. I mean, there's tons of problems always, right? Because the market's always growing. You got companies like Open Door coming through. So, obviously it's getting the deal, but it's always been getting the property, whether it is a multifamily or a single family. That's always been a really hard part of the process. It's just getting more deals that have enough room on them. So.
Yeah. And you started off in 2015, like I mentioned in the intro. You haven't been in for a very long time. What do you think contributed to your scaling and your success in such a short period?
The best answer I'd probably say to this is not just taking massive action, but not having any limited beliefs oh, I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, or I can only transact this transaction one way. I always looked at a transaction as can I wholesale it? Can I fix and flip it? Can I lipstick it, wholesale it? What can I do with this? Do I have to buy it and rent it out to cash flow it? So just not having any limited beliefs and taking massive action on a certain idea or dream that I wanted to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, talk us through that massive action, because so many people think the total opposite way. So walk us through your process. So let's say you want to accomplish something. How do you go about thinking about it and taking that massive action?
Sure. So, I mean, part of it is obviously, the first part is the thoughts and the feelings, right? And then you go in more in depth by okay, what do I need to do every day? Well, if you look at kind of your actions per se, there's a lot of habits that you have to do every single day, whether it's organization skills or persistence or discipline, the follow-up on the phone, what are the statistics? Something crazy, the first call, you'll 99% gonna never get the deal, right? Something like that. So it's always about the follow-up. So there's all these little disciplines that I have created in my life to create a result. Now, does that result happen overnight? Sometimes, and sometimes it takes longer. But I always tell people, if you want to do this and do it on a big scale, and you're taking massive action, just because you're taking massive action doesn't mean you're going to get a 6-pack in a week. So That's kind of how I describe it.
Yeah, or you take the massive action and then you eat a bag of cookies, and then it all goes
Yeah,
out the window.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so in 2015, then what got you hooked on real estate? Well, was it a book you read, a person you spoke with?
Sure. So yeah, I do stuff maybe like on a more untraditional route of things. So I'm not like reading like real estate books or really any of that. I've always learned through just honestly taking action. So I had a friend that was my partner. He probably bought like 3 properties during this time. And he's like, "Hey, move to Colorado and let's just start buying real estate." I'm like, "Okay, sure, like let's do it." So honestly, it was just me wanting to do it. And I had some friends that were doing pretty well out in Austin, Texas. So I knew they were doing it, and my buddy was like, "Hey, let's do it in Colorado." So I moved out here, and the thing that I knew is everybody worries about getting like a buyer's list or getting funding. And I always say, well, if you don't have any product, you're not going to be able to sell to your buyers. And if you don't have any product, you're not going to be able to fund it through your lenders. So I always knew that was a key essential part of business is creating revenue and either creating or creating some type of product or finding that product to resell. So that was my main direction, is just find the product.
Yeah, and you spoke about taking massive action and all of that. How did you get started? Like, you talked about your marketing plan, getting the business up and running, but like what sort of steps did you take in order to get the ball rolling?
So the first thing for me, myself and my partner, we're just like, well, we made a good amount of money off Craigslist on a previous business. So we're like, well, let's just post ads on Craigslist. Hey, I buy houses. So literally that's where, like literally my first month, I got a lead that came in off Bolsom Way in Arvada, Colorado. The guy calls me. He's like, "Hey, I got this property I want to sell. It's like 1,000 square feet, the biggest house on like 1,000 square feet more than any other house on the block. The subfloor was like tilting, and I went to go look at it. It was like slanted, and I don't know if it's foundational issues or anything. I was just like, yeah, I buy houses. So I'm doing like my walkthrough. Long story short, after letting the seller kind of like negotiate the terms of the contract, and like we would send it over to him and he like adjusted how he wants his verbiage. We got it under contract for like somewhere like 240 something. And, at that point, I just knew like, okay, well, my old business, I'd find something off Craigslist and I'd just put it back on Craigslist. So I put the house back on Craigslist, made every amateur mistake in the world, putting the address, people looking in the windows. And long story short, found a buyer that was legit and double closed it less than a month and made $48,500. So that was my first experience with real estate, my first month.
Nice. And as your business grew, did you hit any plateaus? And if so, how did you break through those?
Man, I wouldn't say it was plateaus per se. I'd kind of say you get to this point where you just have so much business and you're like, oh man, now I need a project manager. So then you got to hire a project manager, and then, they're not good and you got to replace them. So it was more of like, the bigger you get, you have to build out these systems, whether it's like a CRM system. Like when we first started doing this, all of our leads were on a Google sheet and I would just go down the line and call, right? So over time, you get Podio and Slack and all these systems that help organize and funnel your database. So if anything, it was really building out the systems because we didn't have any of that in the beginning. So it's really just putting the systems in place to be able to, get bigger.
Yeah. And what sort of advice would you give to somebody starting out fresh now when it comes to incorporating those systems?
Well, they're extremely critical. Podio is definitely a great system. I'm sure tons of your listeners know what it is. For the ones that don't, it's basically an organized CRM system for real estate primarily. So, having Slack is great too, because then you can put each property on your Slack channel and you can kind of keep track of everything. What I always say is like design your system now so you anticipate large growth. So when that large growth happens, you're already structured and ready for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a key point. You're always trying to think 10 steps ahead because chances are if you set things up the right way, the growth will happen a lot quicker than you thought possible.
Totally.
Yeah. And what other routines and rituals then have you developed that have made you a successful real estate investor?
Sure. So I always mention how I became very obsessed with like trying to enhance my cognitive abilities, whether that's memory or focus, or or just little things I notice in my life, small things will be going on. Like, I don't want to make that call, or I don't want to go to that property and take those photos, and really doing the things that you don't want to do because you know that that's going to create a positive result. So yeah, mainly that, just focusing on like my conscious reality of what's going on and subconscious, and focusing on like my memory. And I'm really huge in the energy, and just like, I kind of like mess around with new stuff. Like, I play with nunchucks, right? I wanted to like see, can I use my energy to control an object and get good at it? And it's something I've been doing for a few months now, and I'm slowly getting better. So
Yeah, you've got a little bit of Tim Ferriss in you.
yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. And, we all have those days where, we just don't want to go out, visit a property, do something. So is it just internal self-talk that forces you to get off your butt and actually go do it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's one of those things in the beginning you can like put stuff off, and then once you become more consciously aware of what you're doing, and you're like, oh man, I need to just push through this and do it. And you always feel better, like you always feel better if you do that thing you don't want to do anyways. So I became really good at just doing what I don't want to do, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And, with myself, I prefer doing all that stuff first, and that way it's done out of the way, and then I can focus on the fun stuff. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So is there a Keystone deal that comes to mind that made a big impact on you and your business?
Sure. So there's been many that I've done that have like been, tons of them are just always like new situations, but one that I can, or two technically, they kind of roll together that I think have a huge impact on at least my belief factor within the, being in part of this industry. Is I remember my partner and I, we were like, okay, we did that first deal, and we're like, okay, let's start doing like bandit signs, direct mail, all these other like marketing avenues. So we just get a list, start mailing. And I remember after like 3 or 4 months, we're probably like 17 grand in, and no deals, nothing, just crap leads. And I remember us having a conversation, and it was like, well, do we just stop? Do we just cut this off? Like, maybe we don't know what we're doing and we're burning through cash. And it honestly didn't take us that long of a conversation, but basically the moral of the story is we came up with like, well, screw it, let's just keep going, let's see what happens. So we're making enough money, and we had enough resources where we could just keep going. So 2 weeks later, I get 2 leads that both kind of come in right around the same time. I get them both under contract. One I wholesale, one I wholetail, and we ended up making like $170,000 within like a month. So like, that was pretty crazy. Like, literally we almost stopped, and then we ended up making like 160 something thousand dollars. So that was huge.
Yeah. And I know, speaking with lots of beginning real estate investors, I'm not sure if you found this as well, but so many people, I would say too many people, stop far before they should. They almost get discouraged when they hit a little bit of a bump in the road, but they don't realize what's behind it. Yeah,
totally. For me, I've just kind of like had that, like, I've been killing, or I've been eating what I kill for so long. I've been 100% commission, so I know I just got to stay the course and take that action and just trust that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, and with these 2 deals that fell into your lap, did you even really care what the deals were, or were you just like jumping up and down, super excited that you got something?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I really didn't know how much we were even going to make in the beginning. It was just more like, thank God we got something.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them were pretty like beat up, like they were pretty bad shape. So I didn't know how much money we were going to really make or how much spread. I just was happy we got something under contract.
Yeah. And since then, because that was at the start, how has your view of marketing changed, and what sort of impact has that had on your business?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started doing this, we were doing like bandit signs. Every 1,000 signs gets us a deal, so that was like pretty nice. And then we do the direct mail, and we got pretty good at that. But I think direct mail at this time has been kind of like flooded. That's just my personal opinion, but I know people are still having a lot of success with it. But one thing I remember my partner and I were talking about is doing cold calls. So we built out like a whole Filipino like cold call system, and that was like really weird to call or call people on the phone, like, hey, we're interested in buying your property, or like just assume that you already talked to me. Hey, we talked a while ago, just wanted to reach out. Were you still interested in selling? Who are you? Oh, it was a while back. My name's blah, 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 right? But so that process right there was like very nerve wracking because we've never done it. So we had to like build out full call scripts, rebuttals, all types of stuff. So, and then also knocking doors was interesting too. That, because you've never done it. So like the first time you knock and they answer and you basically stutter all over the place. So we've always had to adapt with our marketing and our strategies and the list that we're actually marketing to. And yeah.
It almost seems that, with the cold calling and the door knocking, that's back to basics, old school.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can honestly cover more territory by just cold calling, and you got a 3-line dialer off call tools. You get like 10 VAs just smashing the phones every day. Something's going to happen from it, right? So
yeah, for sure. And how has the internet factored into your marketing plan?
You said for the internet?
Yeah.
So one thing we did get, or what we started maybe 2 years ago, was like PPC. So just doing online advertising, learning like how to like post ads and not post too many videos on your website so it doesn't slow down, and so many variables to it. But online's great. It's having online, whether you're marketing on, Google or you're marketing on Craigslist, it's huge. I mean, just from like my following on Facebook, I got a deal from my Facebook follower, just someone that hit me up.
Yeah.
So it's huge. I mean, technology is great. If you can't make money in this world, I mean, geez, you would have died in like 100 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. So what sort of impact then has getting into real estate and real estate investing had on you and your life?
Sure. Obviously, there was, the financial aspect to things, doing that kind of amount of deals, and the average profit that we make, creates a good financial lifestyle, right? Which, part of my passion is driving cars. So I was able to buy one of my dream cars. And I do rallies and cruises, and I have a cool car club I'm part of. So the lifestyle of being able to make money from that and kind of take care of things that you wanted to do is nice. But outside of that, I think really it's just a lot about like personal development, like self-development in general. If you can make it work and you can actually be successful in this industry, you you test the limits all the time on just your belief and your mindset. I think it helps long-term. And one thing for me, it definitely helped was cutting my emotions out, just really learning to be numb to any deal and just like think with a clear mind and make precise, accurate decisions as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's the secret. And it's always, when you're first getting going in real estate, you tend to get really excited. But a lot of people will say, once you just don't care and you're just looking at the numbers, that's when you move to become like that professional level.
Yeah, you don't want to get too excited because your heart might get broken.
That's right. Real estate's like dating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, looking ahead, let's say a decade from now, 10 years, where do you see yourself with your business?
So if I'm still, depending on like how the market changes or whatever, if I have the single family fix and flip wholesale business still going on, try to make that more streamlined where I kind of just oversee everything and I'm not more hands-on in the acquisition side. And, having a bunch of rentals and maybe doing mentorships and speaking engagements, kind of show people where I came from. Like I don't have a college degree. I'm just some normal person. They used to call me Dumb Josh, so if I can do it, anybody else can do it. So I'm not like anything special.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe you should have a couple t-shirts. Like you could start a Dumb Josh brand and then have on the back like your bank account.
Yeah, maybe. Your net worth or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Joshua, if somebody's looking to reach out, get in touch, learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
Sure. Instagram is Joshua P. Morse. That's Morse. Or Josh P. Morse on Facebook, or my company is properhomesale.com.
That's great. Just want to say thanks so much for taking the time today and sharing those great tips with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, Seth. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.